So I'm going to use a gender.
Behavioural change consultant John Seaman leads a workshop in transactional analysis for 4 head teachers. His aim is to help them take the emotional pressure out of the potentially stressful meetings they face every day.
Nurturing parent.
Aided by actors Hugh and Kate, John helps the heads identify and work with ego states, behaviour patterns that can hinder effective communication.
What I'd like you to do to begin with is just look, observe and listen to Hugh.
This school is just not good enough. You should do your job properly, and then I wouldn't have to be here in the first place.
What did you feel when you heard Hugh behave like that?
I think it was quite threatening, the way he was expressing himself.
There is a kind of challenge implicit there.
There was a slight irritation that somebody, another adult, could present in such an unreasonable fashion from zero.
So if we just have a look at the next box here, we've got body language.
Well, there's that sort of, that drawing yourself up to your full height. He was certainly coming in to sort of say, I am leading this particular relationship, not you.
He's meaning business. He's also wanting to make sure that you're clear that he thinks it's your fault.
Any other words in particular did you hear?
The word's not good enough.
And the other type of words that you might hear are words like should, must. Did you identify any physical changes within yourselves too?
The colour rising in your cheeks, perhaps, a tingling feeling because you're starting to get anxious.
Hugh was demonstrating an ego state, and it's an ego state that we have to cope with quite often in the type of role that you have with regards to being head teachers. We call this ego state the critical parent. Critical parent.
You should do your job properly, and then I wouldn't have to be here in the first place.
And everything that's written down here, and the words, the descriptors you've used, are a sum total of all the experiences you've had as a child from your parents or people in authority.
What you're saying is that you're responding to that behaviour because it reminds you of being a child, puts you back into that situation, rather than this person's going to hit me in a minute.
It can be that, but yeah, that might have been your experience as a child. So you're drawing from all those memories and experiences, and it will affect the way that you're going to interact with Hugh in that particular ego state.
And there may, you can see, come some kind of conflict if we find it difficult to respond because our own memories, our own flashbacks suddenly set up some kind of barrier there.
Yeah. So what you heard and what you saw there affected you in maybe a completely different way to Leslie, to Yasmin and to Peter. And that's the essence about ego states.
Yes.
So what's actually critical today is that we realise that we all behave differently and react differently to all the ego states that we're going to demonstrate.
I've done your agenda for the day, I've sorted out your files, you have a coffee, and I'll let the others know that you're on your way.
What do I care if it's not done? I only get paid up to 4 o'clock. What are you going to do? Pay me some more money? Yeah, don't think so.
I know I haven't been doing very well, but I will work really hard to make sure that my lesson plans are of a higher standard.
You should make sure that she's dressed.
One of the keys to success in transactional analysis is the ability to recognise these ego states at work. Take this role play, for example.
Good morning, Mr. Smith. Thank you for coming in. I assume you've received our letter and you know why you're here.
Yes, I did receive the letter. And quite frankly, I would like to know what you and your staff team are going to do in order to support my daughter rather than telling me she's near exclusion.
She's continuously late, for one thing. It's very difficult to support someone if she's never here on time.
Well, that's not my fault. I believe that she always leaves the house on time. Believe you me.
You should ensure that she's in school on time.
Just talk about what you saw and you heard.
Well, obviously the mother's come in ready for a fight, hasn't she?
And she was doing lots of stabbing with her finger and that sort of thing.
Yes, it was. Ping-pong argument.
So what ego state was the mother in this instance?
Critical parent.
Because you saw the stabbing actions and the words that you heard were should, must, why don't you? So quite accusatory, wasn't it? What about Hugh, the head teacher?
He was also in the same mode by the end of the conversation, I think, because he was clearly, he clearly felt that he had to attack in order to defend his own position.
He was matching her, in fact. He was using very similar words, and the end result was 0. There was no going forward at all. So then we need to look at ways that we can make this a more productive confrontation.
As a head teacher, you're always sifting what the real reasons are behind why somebody is presenting a certain type of behaviour. And I think the other question is, being aware yourself of whether or not you're being the nurturing parent or the more aggressive one. So making sure that you're always checking your own sorts of responses and that they're not in an ego state.
You talked about checking your initial responses, and this is what it's about. So we're raising awareness of what your initial basic responses are going to be and being able to check them and take yourself and the other person to a level playing field, really, whereby, again, the communication is going to be productive. That's what I'm going to keep coming back to all the time with regards to these ego states. So it's being aware as to how you want to react naturally, but being able to hold that appropriately and then get into, well, I'll tell you now, it's called the adult ego state, which can be quite difficult to achieve because you have so many difficult meetings every day of your life. And that accumulation of the sometimes small levels of stress and then the big levels of stress can just grow and grow and grow.
Hugh shows how the adult ego state works in practice.
It seems to me that if you ran a tighter ship and organised your staff so they could discipline Debbie more appropriately, then I wouldn't need to keep coming in here and wasting my own time.
Well, the fact that you're here shows us that you're just as interested as we are in Debbie's future.
Of course I'm concerned. She's my daughter.
How do you think we could work together to help Debbie?
Well, I don't know. She's just so angry all of the time.
Angry? Why do you think that is?
Well, I suppose it started when her father died last year.
Oh, okay. Has Debbie mentioned a member of staff, maybe, that she gets on particularly well with?
Well, no one specifically, but the name Miss Flower?
Ah, Miss Flowers. How would it be if we arranged a meeting with Debbie and Miss Flower to see how maybe we could get through to her?
Yes, that would be good. That would be very good. Thank you.
So what changes did you observe there from the last set of ego states that they demonstrated?
Well, they started from a position of a shared interest. We both care about Debbie was the starting point, wasn't it? And then it moved towards solutions.
So what we were starting to observe is where both parties were beginning to gain the adult ego state. And the adult ego state is about behaving in the here and now, as opposed to what's gone on before and so on, drawing from memories as children and seeing their parents and so on, and dealing with those issues here and now. So he showed...
There are a few simple tips to help attain the adult ego state. Actively listen. Allow the other person to air their views. Take an empathic stance. Check your body language is neutral. Breathe and remain grounded to avoid rushed emotional responses. A new scenario. The head teacher calls in a teacher over an allegation from a pupil. This meeting has serious potential for stress. Can working with ego state theory help?
I just want to air with you an issue that's arisen with a student who has made an allegation against you.
Right.
Clearly, I'm not going to proceed any further until I've heard from you. They are alleging that you have been abusive to them, that you have
And when did this happen?
That you have used very strong language to describe them, language that we would all consider and you would consider yourself inappropriate.
So do you think I did it?
I'm
I mean,
not
if you do,
saying
then you've got to suspend me,
you
haven't
know
you?
as well as I do that if I thought you'd done it, Leslie, then I could immediately say, OK, Leslie, I believe you've done this, go. And that's not the case, is it?
So why are we having this conversation now,
Well,
if you don't believe it?
You may or may not know the rules, the way these things operate, Leslie, but A, you have a right to be heard. B, the parent of this child could bring it forward as a matter of an official complaint, a formal complaint, and therefore, obviously, it moves up a gear. And it would be absolutely unthinkable for me to deal with that at all without saying, Leslie, I need to hear from you what you think went on here. You may say to me, nothing went on.
So this was period 6 yesterday,
Period 6
the end of the day,
near the end of the day.
but you chose not to talk to me about it until today.
And it wasn't reported to me until first thing this morning. And once I had it reported to me, then I thought in the interest of your own particular condition, it was essential that I spoke to you as soon as I could.
I'm angry. I'm angry that you think that it would be something that I would entertain for a minute. And if there's a procedure to follow here, then you either send me home because you think there might be some substance to it, or you say to me, this has happened, I don't believe it, on your way. Why are you taking the child's side and not mine?
Well, I mean...
So, Peter, did you recognise any ego states within Leslie at that time?
I mean, there was a bit of the critical parent in there. That's kind of, the best form of defence is attack. I suppose in certain raised emotional states, your own logic, your own rationality goes out the window and start to say, you've taken that child's view and not mine, you can suspend me, why don't you suspend me? That kind of extreme reaction.
So certainly the critical parent mode was when she was saying, so you should have suspended me.
Yeah.
It was like accusing you of not doing your job.
Yeah.
But did anybody get another ego state that came in and out?
Rebellious child.
So what did you hear?
Like, well, go do this to me, I don't care, sort of thing.
Everything was like flippantness and also almost being amazed, that you're accusing me, this type of thing. So there were some shifts, some split-second shifts from one ego state to another. And this is really common, particularly when we're having difficult conversations with people.
To find a resolution in the meeting, as head teacher, Peter tried to engage adult ego states.
Why are you taking the child's side and not mine?
Well, I'm not taking the child's side. If I thought you'd done it, then clearly I might take another course of action. I've got a young child who's reported to me that this and this and this happened. It's only absolutely right that you have a chance now to respond to that. So I need you, absolutely now, to tell me what happened in period 6 that might have caused this child to feel, react or allege what they've alleged.
I'm still feeling a bit hurt that you've felt...
Don't feel hurt, because I'm making no judgment here whatsoever. I'm simply responding, as we all have to an allegation that's been made.
Now that you've said that it's John,
Yeah.
now I have a little bit more understanding.
Okay.
Because he didn't have a very good lesson. He hadn't had a very good lesson the day before. And I had finished up by telling him that I wanted him to go home and ask his mother to phone in and speak to me.
What you've given me now is some information. So you would say to me, categorically, and it's only fair that I would say it, that you did not say, John Smith, you're an effing lazy little bee.
No.
Exactly. Well, that's what I needed here.
OK.
So Leslie, how did you feel in response to Peter and did you recognise an ego state that he was in?
I felt that he remained very calm in response to me being irrational and emotional and irate.
So did you see any particular body language that was repetitive or obvious?
He maintained eye contact with me throughout. He leant towards me slightly so that his body language was about support, and he was very much wanting me to understand that he was on my side and was supporting me, even when I was being unreasonable. And he kept repeating over again that he wasn't making judgments and he wasn't criticising me and he wasn't taking my side. So there was a lot of continual reinforcement of what I wasn't hearing.
One of the things I found really helpful about today is just being a bit more objective about the feelings and emotions that you go through in some of these more difficult situations.
But today's helped me recognise the feelings that are starting to build up inside of me so that I can actually manage them and they don't become such a big deal for me, I think.
Thinking about this in this particular kind of way will enable me to think about how I'm behaving and therefore stimulating other kinds of behaviours in others, but also how their behaviours may not be bringing out the best in me to enable me to come to a resolution.
I think it's interesting to note that I could be seeing in a member of staff, a student, a parent, an Ofsted inspector, the same kind of ego state in all of them. But I might think about it differently because of who they are. But perhaps I ought to consider, no, it's the ego state I need to work with first of all, to enable to lever them out of that and move forward.
More information about the techniques shown in this programme is available on the Teachers TV website.